Okay, I'm going to reread. This is a rereading. Is that a thing? I'm going to reread chapters 4, 5, and 6 of our book, No Talking by Andrew Clements. For some reason, I couldn't save the last video, so I don't want to keep you in suspense any longer. So we are starting with chapter 4, Cooties. When little Dave Packer and all the other kids his age first showed up to begin kindergarten together, it was sort of like they were new recruits joining the Army, and kindergarten was sort of like basic training camp, except the teachers were a lot nicer than Army drill instructors. After 9 long months together in kindergarten, Dave and the other new recruits were allowed to quit the Army, but only for the summer, because in September they all had to re-enlist for first grade. And after first grade, they marched through second grade together, then third, and so on. Right through the grades. Together, a few kids moved away and a couple of the new kids arrived. But Dave and those original kindergarten recruits stayed together year after year, and they began to grow up together. At most elementary schools, by the time a group gets to 5th grade, the boys have stopped thinking that all the girls have cooties, and the girls have stopped thinking that all the boys have cooties. And that's the way it should be, to outgrow that stuff. For some groups, that's easy. The kids grow up a little bit and they all learn that everyone's a real person and some of those persons are boys and some are girls. And suddenly everyone gets along just fine, person to person, no more cooties. However, some groups of kids cling to those cooties a little too long. The boys avoid the girls and the girls avoid the boys, and everyone keeps seeing cooties everywhere. And sadly, that's the way it was with most of the 5th grade kids at Laketon Elementary School. Of course, the 5th graders didn't actually use the word cooties anymore. That would have sounded like baby talk. They used words like dumb or gross or immature or annoying. But a cootie by any other name is still a cootie. And even worse, Dave and Lindsay were the king and queen of the 5th grade cootie clingers. Dave had 0 tolerance for girls, and Lindsay had less than 0 tolerance for boys. And that's why Dave should have kept his mouth shut. Now it's the time to get back to the action in the lunchroom, because when Lindsay heard Dave say, "Boys never talk as much as girls do," she felt like all the girls everywhere had been insulted, slapped in the face by a dumb, gross, immature, annoying boy. And she hadn't forgotten what Dave had already said about the top of her head blowing off because of hot gas. Lindsay wasn't the kind of person who forgives and forgets an insult and then gets even. Chapter 5, The Contest. Lindsay narrowed her eyes and hissed, "You take that back!" Dave shrugged. "Take what back? That girls are big blabberheads all the time? No way, because they are. Everybody knows that." It's a shame to have to report this, but Dave actually believed what he was saying, and in his ignorant but creative young mind, an idea sparked to life. Before Lindsay or any of her friends could say something back, Dave said, "And there's a way to prove that girls talk way more than boys, unless you're afraid of some competition. You and your noisy friends." "Afraid?" Lindsay said, looking around to the other girls. "We're not afraid of anything except catching whatever made you so stupid." The girls giggled, but Dave ignored the insult, completely caught up by his new idea. He waved his hands to quiet them down. "Okay, here's the deal. A whole day of no talking at school. Not in class, not in the halls, not on the playground, nowhere. No talking at all. And it's a contest. Boys against girls. Whichever side talks less, wins." Lindsay made a face. "No talking at school? That's impossible." Dave had an advantage here. He had just spent almost 4 hours without saying a word at school. So he had some experience and he felt like he knew what he was talking about. He grinned and said, "Maybe it's impossible for a girl to be quiet, but I bet the boys can do it. Or at least we can do it better than the girls." Lindsay said, "But what if a teacher looked right at you and asked a question? Then what?" Dave grinned and said, "You could always cough." Lindsay's mouth dropped open and then she glared at him. "You did that coughing in social studies on purpose? You are so immature." Dave shrugged. It was sort of a test, and it worked. But if every kid in 5th grade coughed every time a teacher asked a question, that would not work. Lindsay sniffed. "Well, I say that this whole idea is childish, silly and childish." "It's okay if you don't want to," Dave said. "It was just an idea. I mean, I could see why you'd be afraid since you're a girl and all. And since you have to talk every other second, no problem. Sorry I interrupted you. Just keep talking to your friends there. You were talking about something important, weren't you? That special sweater, right? Go ahead, talk. You girls go on. Talk and talk and talk all you want to. Lindsay pressed her lips together and glared at Dave, her eyes narrowed to slits. You are the most annoying. She stopped mid-insult and folded her arms. All right, she said. Let's work it out. The rules, right now. If a teacher talks to you, what then? You answered, Dave said. How many words can you use? She asked. Dave smiled. Let's make it 10 words in case you and your friends need to tell a teacher about some new clothes you got. Stop trying to be funny because you're not, Lindsay said. Make the limit 4 words. If you answer with more than 4 words in a row, the extras count. Dave shook his head. 4's still too easy. Let's make it a 3-word limit, and every illegal word is 1 point against your team. Duh, Lindsay said. Like I need you to explain that? So it's a 3-word limit? 3, said Lindsay. And you can answer teachers or the principal or any grown-up at school, said Dave, like the custodian. Or the nurse, added Lindsay, because she wasn't about to let Dave Packer have the last word about anything. What about contractions? She asked. What about them? Dave said. Does a contraction count as 1 word or 2? Dave didn't let it show in his face, but he was impressed by Lindsay's question. That she was able to think so far ahead and figure out that words like won't or isn't could cause a scorekeeping problem. And right away, Dave was just as impressed with himself because he understood how to answer her question with a question of his own. He said, if you go find a dictionary, you can look up the word won't. Lindsay nodded. Of course you can. Then it's a word, 1 word, said Dave. Any other questions? And now it's Lindsay's turn to hide her thoughts because she was impressed with Dave's answer. He was still very annoying, but his answer seemed right. Plus, he'd explained his reasoning clearly. But she didn't get carried away with the good feelings about Dave. He was still a miserable, unpleasant boy who was forcing her to get involved in a pointless contest. It's also a shame to have to report this, but Lindsay was just as proud and stubborn as Dave. And since he had pushed her into this fight, she felt it was her duty to push back, and she saw the perfect way to do it. She turned away and whispered something to the girls at her lunch table, and when they all nodded their heads, she turned back to Dave. She gestured towards her friends and said, we want to make this a contest harder. How about this? No talking at home either, or on the school bus, or anywhere else. No talking at all, except for what we already decided, not even to parents. And let's make the contest last for 2 days instead of 1. 2 24-hour days in a row, unless you think that's too hard. Dave shrugged. Fine, no problem, except how do we keep track of all the mess-ups when you and your friends start gabbing at home? You mean when the boys cheat? Said Lindsay. Simple. We'll have to use the honor system when we're not at school. It's the only way. We all keep track of our own mistakes and report them, honestly, except I don't know if the boys can be trusted. Have any boys even heard of the honor system? I know you can't trust the girls. Don't worry about us, Dave said. Lindsay tossed her head. So when does the contest start? The girls can be ready by tomorrow at lunchtime, unless that's too soon for the boys. Do you need more time to get organized, like a week or 2 weeks? Very funny, said Dave. We'll start Tuesday tomorrow at the beginning of lunch, and it's not over until Thursday. How about a 12:15? That'll be the middle of lunch period. Lindsay nodded, and Dave went on. I'll be the official scorekeeper for our side, and you keep track for the girls. And no cheating, okay? Lindsay nodded again. Agreed. She held out her hand. Dave looked at it and it was covered with slime. What? He said. Lindsay wrinkled her nose. It's revolting, but we have to shake on it so you won't try to back out. Dave shook and then made a show of wiping his hand on his pants, which got a big laugh from the 5 or 6 boys who had witnessed the ceremony. And as Dave turned and went into the huddle with the guys at his lunch table, Lindsay did the same with the girls at her table. The contest was on. Chapter 6. Teamwork. The boys Dave ate lunch with were his best friends. He looked around at them and grinned after he explained the rules. Cool contest, huh? Todd shook his head. I'm not doing this. It's dumb. Who wants to not talk? Besides, it's impossible, like she said. You think girls can stop talking about boys? You think girls can stop talking, but boys can't? Dave asked. So you're just giving up without a fight? Is that it? Todd said, well, no, but it's still a stupid idea. So what? Said Dave. It's a contest, and the boys are going to win it, okay? So listen, first we've got to tell every guy, everybody has to be with us on this. Tim Flanagan was absent in homeroom this morning. I'll call him in case he's coming back tomorrow. And you all have to do that too. Figure out who else isn't here. And if you don't have a number, call me at home tonight. Because my mom has a school directory. And every 5th grade boy who's here at school has to be told today. Okay? Jason said, but really, not talking for 2 days? Like, how? Dave pulled an index card from his pocket. On the back of his India report, he wrote the word easy. He held it up, showing it to all the boys. Then he said, did I just talk? No, said Jason. Dave said, keep watching. He shook his head. Then he nodded at them. Then he smiled. Then he frowned and showed his teeth and growled like a dog. I didn't talk, right? But you got what I said. Not talking just means not talking. It'll probably be fun. But even if it's not, it's a contest against the girls. And we're going to win it, right? And tell all the guys to practice short sentences. 3 words or less. Jim said, you bug me. Jason said, your breath smells. Richard said, look, it's Batman. Hey, is Batman 1 word or 2? And the sentences kept coming, each boy trying to be the goofiest. Guys, Dave said, guys, come on. We've only got 14 minutes before next period. All the 5th grade boys are right here at lunch. It's the perfect chance to tell everyone, and I hate to tell you, but the girls are already way ahead of us. The boys hushed and looked around. Lindsay, Anna, Emily, Taryn, all the friends who'd been sitting at the table were fanning out through the cafeteria, talking to every girl in sight, and Hannah and Karen were headed for the door to the playground. Dave said, everybody know what you have to say to our team. The boys looked back at him and nodded, each face deadly serious now. All right, then, Dave said, let's do this. All right. That was chapters 4 through 6 of our book, No Talking. All right. Have a great night.